Hello and welcome to CSM Mistakes Were Made. When doing projects like I'm into recently, scrappy scarves, you try to get good at doing yarn joins, ending one piece of yarn and beginning another. So I thought maybe this video could help some new crankers especially learn some methods to help them do just that. I'm presenting 3 methods of joining yarns while you're on the machine, while you're actually cranking. I'm also showing 2 methods of joining yarns when the work is off the machine. Finally, there's a little footage of Diana Garlinghouse and I playing around with an air splicer, a device that we just couldn't resist after seeing Teri Mei demonstrate it on the Lamb LT150 Facebook page. And it's really an interesting way to join yarns, especially if you're really interested in bulk and getting large cones of scrappy yarn. Enjoy the video, and thanks for watching CSM Mistakes Were Made. At this point, I want to show new crankers how to do what's known as a faux Russian join. And a Russian join will be included on the same video in a different part of the video, and that true Russian join is done off the machine. I suppose you could cut this, take a needle and wind it through and try to join that way. I have done that before with certain yarns, but it's really impractical to do a true Russian join when you've got a project in the works. Many of us settle for what works almost, well, probably just as well or better, and it's called a faux Russian join. So you snip the yarn. You cut your old yarn and then you back feed it under, in my case I've got this little loop. If you didn't have this little pigtail, which is only needed because I have a split in this yarn carrier, you would just back feed it through the hole. So in my case I have this yarn carrier that is split. So I feed it through and I have a tail. I really want to preserve some part of this loop because this is what's going to catch my new yarn and I don't want it to get away from me. So I'm going to make it about that big, and I want to put this tail in a needle. Let me show you. That is on its way down. So you can see that needle, and I want that end, this old end, to hang out inside the cylinder about this length, not much shorter than this. This will keep it on the inside of the scarf project. If the tail is much shorter, it'll work its way out onto the public side, and well, it's still likely a very secure join, even if this little end comes out, but I don't like it poking out, so I go to a lot of effort now to make sure that it's long enough to stay on the inside. And we've got a new yarn. Put it in my yarn topper. This is the new yarn. And put it in, and then take it so that it fits right in that little loop that we haven't lost yet. And I hold them together. One of the dangers is, even though it's caught here, the blue is very secure, but the new yarn won't be secure until it's actually captured by some of these needles. So let's go and do some. It's a little bit hard to crank when it's doubled up like that, but there's the join right there, and by now it is secure enough so I don't need to hold it. So I'm going to crank forward. Good grief. There we go. Spend a little time digging out what will be a similar end to this one on the new yarn and pull it into the middle. It certainly wouldn't be hard to imagine that if I kept going, this tail of the new yarn would simply kind of incorporate into maybe the next 2 or 3 needles. But for the same reason I just mentioned, this tail needs to stay on the inside of the work, especially with a scarf project. So I'm going to be careful and spend a little time each time I do a join like this and leave a tail. In this case, I'm guessing that's about 3/4 of an inch. All right, so we're on our way. Let's crank a few rows. The next join I'm going to show is a very simple join in that you depend on the yarn doubled up to hold on to itself. And so let me show you what I mean. First I have to pick a yarn. What do I want? Well, let's just put a little bit of this in. This is a tiny bit, and I'll get rid of it. All right, so I will introduce this, put it through my yarn topper, put this in here, and knit these together for 3 or 4 stitches. Okay, again, I'm going to try to make sure that I have a yarn tail that I can live with. The new yarn tail will be on this side, and the old yarn tail I'll snag before it gets too far along and I can't grab it anymore will be on this side. So this is really just knitting in about 4 or 5 stitches of the doubled up yarn. It's very simple and secure, especially for something like a scarf, where it's not it's a garment that's worn, but it doesn't get a lot of hard wear and tear. So we're gonna keep going and try to get rid of this pink yarn. It won't give me too many rows, but let's see. I think we're good. I'm going to now do another faux Russian join. I think that's my go-to method. I'll try to find another small piece. Yeah, why not? You can just have fun with this, and it is not rocket science at all. You can just have fun, make sure you have a tail, put this in just like so, and crank away. It's not secure yet because it hasn't been cut by needles, but now it is. And I'm going to spend just a little time teasing out the tail and putting it in the middle of the cylinder so that it doesn't look bad on the outside. All right, I'm going to just finish this little piece up. And now this is where I'm going to do a second example of just overlapping. This is calling to me. I don't know. Let's see. I'll see how it looks. Okay, so when we overlap yarns, we simply load it in and let it take off. And left to its own devices, it would, well, let me show you what it would do. This one's safe. Left to its own devices, it becomes a tiny little wisp. In this case, it's on the inside of the cylinder, but it's not going to stay there. So what I ended up doing on my last project is I teased all of these out so that they were on the inside. And well, I'm always grateful for people who share their ideas online. And I did a poll about a couple days ago on the CSKMS Facebook page where I asked people what their usual join is when they crank socks. And I put some choices. It was just a poll, the faux Russian join, overlapping some stitches, tying a knot, doing a hand graft with a needle, etc. And I thought that was all there was. Well, I learned that there are more ways you can join yarn. This way that Tom described in a response to my poll is deserving of a little attention. Now, I will say this is very similar to the faux Russian join in that you're grabbing some yarns, you're keeping one color on one side of the join and the other color on the other side. But if I understand Tom's post correctly, the way he does it allows you to take the ends of each of the old color and the new color and pull them so that you can do something to disguise the jog. Now, I'm not terribly interested in doing that because I don't mind the jog. In case you're interested in trying to get rid of the jog that happens where a join occurs, this might appeal to you. And again, it's very similar to the faux Russian join. So I'll describe how it's a little bit different and how it lends itself to maybe tugging the ends a little bit. Okay, with this method, you take your old yarn out of the yarn carrier and lay it inside. I've got this little red tipped needle that'll help us kind of keep oriented. We're going to put our new yarn in the yarn carrier. Now, here's where it gets a little interesting. We take the new yarn, and this is going to be painfully obvious that I'm not very good at this. I wanted to grab the other side of this red needle. So I have to move the yarn carrier sort of out of the way to do this next part. You weave your yarn in and out of the needles, the next few needles. So the difference between this and the faux Russian join is that when you bury yarn like this, you're only really knitting in every other needle. The needles where the yarn is on the outside, those will knit, and the other ones will just kind of be a running thread. The strength of this join is that you will, and you got to make sure that that's under that little, in this case, red needle. So we've got both needles to knit in where that little red needle was, and we crank around, and this is where we can now take the old yarn and do the same thing, and it's certainly not as hard when you don't have to keep avoiding the yarn carrier. So you just weave it in several needles in and out. When I go around again, it's caught. It's my understanding that he can then take these somewhat loosely woven in ends, pull them, and disguise where the join happens. I don't know if he does that on the machine or off the machine, but this is very similar to a faux Russian join. The results are a little looser. I think it's still very secure. So I would trim these to about 3/4 of an inch or an inch, and then it's done. I want to show two similar versions of joins that you can do that are very secure. And one is going to be a Russian join. And we, as crankers, often use something while we're on the machine. It's called a faux Russian join. This is the actual true Russian join that I'll show first. And then there's a second one that is an alternative to that one, and it's also called a needle join or a cheater's braided join. And I was interested in this ever since I saw Jenny Howard's video on this, and she does a good job of explaining, but I was going to try to reproduce it here. You'll need scissors, of course. You'll need a needle. And the kind of needles that you don't need are long. This is too long, too blunt. This one is shorter, but it's still blunt. For doing this kind of work, you want one with a little bit more of a point. And with that, sometimes the eyes are a little hard to load, but I'm going to use this little tool that I think is pretty nifty. All right, so this light gray yarn is going to be joined to this dark gray yarn. So this little nifty tool that I like, especially for thicker yarns, to load the needle. There we go. I'll put these over here. We don't need those right now. So we're going to start a Russian join. This is the old yarn. And I don't know, leave about 1.5 inches, 2 inches or so. And then turn the needle over and start gathering up the plies onto the shaft of the needle through the center. So that's the idea. Now, if you do go to watch Jenny Howard's video, you can see that there's a tail, a loop, and then all this gathered yarn. We're going to put the new yarn through that little loop so that we don't lose it, because that's critical. That's really where the join is the strongest, of course, because they're looped on each other. So we'll pull this through and get the little end all the way through. Tease that out. Yeah, it's that one there. And we need our needle again, so we're going to take that off. It looks like kind of an ugly, hot mess, but that's okay. We're going to take this end and load our needle. And let's see if I can do this without twisting everything around. I like to go from right to left. So I'm going to put the new yarn over on my left because I'm going to be now weaving this tail up through the new yarn. Again, I'm going to leave 1.5 inches or 2 inches. I'm going to start loading all of these plies through the center by sending this sharp needle up through. And it certainly isn't something you have to be super neat and tidy about. You've just got to kind of get a piece of each ply until you're pretty sure that that's enough. So now I've got the old yarn on the right, the new yarn on the left with this tail that should go away once we pull it through. So I'm going to pull it through and get my needle off, which involves getting that one tail to release. All right, kind of looks icky, but once you pull it, and you can pull pretty strong on this, pretty hard on this, it tidies up beautifully. And you snip these little pieces and you are good to go. This is a very secure join. This is the famous Russian join. Let's do the next one. Let's cut this out so we can compare it. We'll do the next one. Leave that there. And again, we're going to take our old yarn and put it on the needle. Let's use this little tool. I think I got this on Amazon and I had to buy like 10 of them. So if you ever see me in a crank-in, I'll give you one. All right, so we get that loaded. This is the old yarn, and you just need a little tiny tail. You take your new yarn and you start winding up about maybe a needle's distance. So there's the point, there's the tip. So I'm going to start my project right there. I'm going to start gathering up all of these little plies. And getting these loaded onto the needle. Just like so. And that's a pretty good amount. Now, we need our needle. So we're going to pull this through to get the needle off. And we're going to load the new yarn, in this case, this dark gray yarn, onto the needle. Now, the old yarn is going through the new yarn in this direction. The new yarn is going to go through the old yarn in this direction. I'm going to turn everything around. I'm going to take my new dark gray yarn and put it in the middle of this old light gray yarn. And you basically start right at where they separate. And you put your needle in right there and go for it the same way. So I'm winding this up here, winding it up, and I think that's plenty for now. I'm going to take my needle off, which means that this end is going to be taken all the way through the center of the old yarn. You're left with a hot mess. Again, they all look kind of bad when you first take the needle off. And what we did with this one is all we did is we pulled it and it tidied up beautifully. You can't do that with this one. You've got to kind of baby it because there's no secure looping on this one. It's basically one yarn is put through the other. So here's the result. I would probably trim that one, but that one doesn't need it. So that's what this alternative Russian join, also the needle join, also a cheater's braided join looks like. So it's interesting. This one really mixes the colors well. And if you're joining the same color yarn, it wouldn't matter. This one you can see loops one and the other. And again, if they were the same color, it wouldn't matter. But you can clearly see the difference in how they look when they're different colors. So these are two ends of some Fortissima sock yarn, which is 6-ply. All right, we're going to join them using a product that's specially made to take two ends, and I'm going to come over to this side, and they stick out, and you can, oh wow, look at that. Let me see. Okay, so it's got to focus there. Let's see. Okay, so that is a burst of air essentially that joins these. Now it looks a little rough, Diana. Do you think that would be, can I trim that? It's very,
if you pull really hard,
if you pull really hard, it might come apart. Let's try it again. Okay, so I did not know that you place it in there, the two halves parallel, you cut it first. Okay, and then you get the little burst. So it's a small device. It costs about how much? 180?
I think.
Yeah.
It's from SRT.
SRT, and it's hooked. And we'll provide a link. And the rest of this whole apparatus, this is not part of it. This is just so it stands.
This is a mic stand to make it easy.
Exactly. This is the hose that goes all the way around to a second piece of equipment that you would need, and that's maybe the rub for me, as I don't own one of these. This is an air compressor.
And it's set at about 85 is about what he said.
And here's what we would then take that spliced yarn and then wind it onto a cone.
So Virginia Burrows down in Australia does these beautiful Frankenstocks.
Okay.
And she uses this to measure her yarn, which is a fishing pole. It goes on a fishing pole. And as you wind it, this tells you how much fiber has gone through.
So you wound it around twice.
Right.
Kind of.
And you can see, can you see it? So then, if you were doing a Frankenstock and you wanted 60 feet of yarn, which is what she does for, you would crank that to 18 because this is meters.
Okay.
And then you would cut it, and then you would join. And what you could do is you could just do a whole bunch, and then that's how I did it, and make a cone.
If I understand correctly, these 4 cones are the product of of this splicer, that counter, and a different winder.
18 meters of one color, and then join to the next one.
You plan on making a special garment out of this, right?
Yes, a sweater, the sea glass.
The sea glass sweater. Yeah. So you've used this splicer a lot. Okay.